The heat in Daniel's tiny garage was almost unbearable that day, but for a man who had grown up in hardship, surrounded by rattling engines and the scent of grease, it didn't matter anymore. This small auto shop at the edge of town wasn't just his workplace. It was the last piece of his father's dream, and the only thing he had left after years of struggle. Daniel had been a mechanic since he was 15. His father had taught him how to fix engines with nothing more than duct tape, intuition, and love. Put aside his dreams and become the breadwinner of the family. He'd fixed cars by day and fallen asleep by the workbench at night. Over time, the world forgot Daniel. Big dealerships opened up with glossy showrooms and shiny uniforms. Still, Daniel kept it alive. Even when he could barely afford rent. Even when dinner was just a slice of bread and some tea. To call it a day, a faint knock echoed from the garage entrance. Wiping sweat from his brow, he turned and saw her, small, fragile. She stood next to a rusted, barely recognizable vintage Mustang. One headlight missing, the hood slightly ajar, and patches of rust devouring the once beautiful red paint. Her eyes, though, sparkled with determination and vulnerability all at once. "Are you Daniel?" "Name's Lily," she said, shifting slightly on her crutches. "Someone told me you're the best mechanic in town, that you fix cars when others say they can't be fixed." Daniel raised a brow, half flattered, half curious. "That's a lot of pressure. What's wrong with your ride?" Lily hesitated, then pointed to the Mustang behind her. "It was my dad's. He passed away last year. He promised to teach me how to drive in that car. I've been saving for months. I don't have much. I tutor kids, run errands, even taught a dog to do tricks just to get extra cash. I know it's not enough, but I want to fix it up. I want to drive it to prom. I want to feel—" Daniel walked over to the car and peeked inside. The interior was a mess. Wires sticking out like veins, the dashboard cracked, the gear stuck in place. Under the hood was even worse, a complete disaster. It was practically dead. He sighed, then looked at her. Something about Lily reminded him of himself. That same look of desperation he'd worn when he was young, begging anyone to just give him a shot. "How much time do I have?" Daniel asked. Lily blinked. 2 weeks? Daniel scratched his chin, then nodded slowly. "Leave it here. I'll see what I can do." Lily's face lit up, but then she shook her head. "But I really don't have the money." He raised a hand and smiled. "We'll talk about payment later." She froze. "Are you serious? Dead serious? You want this fixed for prom? I'll make it happen." Lily's eyes welled with tears, and she struggled to find words. Daniel just waved her off and got to work. For the next 2 weeks, Daniel lived in his garage. He worked through the night, using every tool he had, scraping together whatever spare parts he could find. He drove out to junkyards, bargained with old friends, and even sold his favorite wristwatch's father's watch to pay for parts. The town started to notice. A baker brought him coffee in the mornings. A retired mechanic donated an old gearbox. People he hadn't spoken to in years began showing up, offering what little help they could. Slowly, the Mustang began to take shape again. Day by day, it transformed from a broken memory into a masterpiece. He rebuilt the engine piece by piece, rewired the dashboard, fixed the steering, replaced the brakes, restored the chrome rims, and polished every inch with painstaking care. The car wasn't just a vehicle, light, was a symbol of resilience, of memory, of hope. On the morning of prom day, Daniel stepped back and admired his work. The Mustang gleamed under the sunlight, roaring back to life as if resurrected from the dead. Just then, Lily arrived at the garage. She wore a light pink dress, simple but elegant, her hair curled at the ends, eyes wide with disbelief as she saw the car. She gasped, a hand covering her mouth. "Oh my God," she whispered. "Is that really my car?" Daniel smiled. "You better believe it, all set and ready for prom." She limped over slowly, running her fingers across the car's smooth hood. "You did this. You actually did it." He nodded. "Prom ready, and more importantly, safe. I made sure it's fully accessible for you. Modified the pedals, added hand controls. You'll be fine." She turned to him, tears streaming down her face. "I don't even know what to say. Just promise me you'll drive safe." Daniel chuckled. But before she could respond, a luxury black Rolls-Royce pulled up outside the garage. A sharply dressed chauffeur stepped out and opened the back door. From inside stepped a tall woman in an elegant white dress, designer heels clicking against the pavement, and diamond earrings that sparkled in the daylight. Her posture was commanding, and her face looked stern, at first until she saw Lily. "Mom?" Lily said, surprised. The woman walked over quickly and hugged her daughter tightly. "I had to come. I heard everything." She then turned to Daniel. "You must be the mechanic who worked on Lily's car." Daniel, unsure of what to say, nodded. "Yes, ma'am. Daniel Carter." She extended her hand. "I'm Evelyn Thornton, Lily's mother." He shook her hand, hesitant. Her tone was polite, but he could sense something deeper. "Your daughter's a fighter," Daniel said. Evelyn looked over the car and shook her head in disbelief. "She told me you worked night and day, that you didn't take a penny from her, that you treated her like she mattered." Daniel shrugged. "It wasn't a big deal." "It is to me," she said firmly. She snapped her fingers, and the chauffeur walked over, holding a leather briefcase. Evelyn opened it and laid it in front of Daniel. Inside was a thick stack of cash and a set of legal documents. "This is $100,000. And these papers," she pointed to the documents there, "for a fully owned, fully equipped auto shop in the city. I bought it yesterday. It's yours if you want it." Daniel's jaw dropped. "I what? You gave my daughter her confidence back. That means everything to me. And I want to give something back to you." Daniel stepped back, overwhelmed. "I run a foundation that helps children with disabilities. We need someone who can do what you just did. Someone who understands, someone who cares. This shop isn't just a gift. It's a partnership. I want you to work with us. Customize vehicles for kids like Lily. Restore their dreams, just like you did with this car." Daniel felt his throat tighten. "Now, let us help you." Daniel looked back at the Mustang, the shining symbol of what he had done with nothing but grit, oil, and heart. For the first time in years, he felt something unfamiliar hope, and he finally whispered, "Yes." Daniel stood frozen in place as Evelyn Thornton, the billionaire heiress, philanthropist, and CEO of a vast charity empire, offered him not just money, not just a business, but a completely different life than the one he had ever imagined for. Himself, his fingers still slightly trembling as he touched the edges of the briefcase. The texture of the fine leather so different from the grease-covered tools and rusted car parts he was used to handling every single day. His dusty garage with no Mustang, no Lily, and no one remembering his name. But the truth of the moment stood right in front of him, Lily, glowing with joy and pride, her crutches resting against the fender of the car that had once been her father's most cherished possession, now lovingly restored and transformed into something alive again, and Evelyn, calm and elegant, her smile sincere, her presence powerful. A woman who had likely walked boardrooms with kings and yet now stood humbly before a man in oil-stained overalls because of one thing, kindness. And in that moment, Daniel realized that all the nights he had slept on cold cement floors with nothing but a tattered jacket and a dream, all the years of being overlooked, underestimated, and dismissed by people who didn't understand his quiet strength, had all led to this intersection in time, to this very point where destiny, fate, or something far greater had brought them. All together under the faded tin roof of a forgotten garage at the edge of a forgotten town, and with a slow, deep breath, he looked up into Evelyn's eyes and said, "The one word that would change everything, yes." Gasp, the chauffeur nodded, as if confirming the universe's decision, her face softening with both relief and satisfaction, because she had seen something rare in Daniel, something she couldn't manufacture, couldn't fake art. And in a world of polished suits and manufactured sincerity, and so began the most extraordinary chapter of Daniel Carter's life, as the next few weeks became a blur of paperwork, signatures, relocation meetings, and blueprints. Because the shop Evelyn had bought wasn't just a building, it was a fully customer lounges and even a design lab where custom modifications could be developed for differently abled drivers. And when Daniel first stepped inside that new garage, his garage floors was so unlike the cracked cement and leaking pipes of his old shop that it brought tears to his eyes, and Evelyn, true to her word, had already arranged a soft launch under the banner of her foundation, presenting the project as a partnership between a master mechanic with a golden heart and a mother who believed no child should be denied the chance to drive just because of physical limitations. And with Lily's story at the center of the launch campaign, the response was overwhelming The local media picked it up. Then national outlets followed, and soon online blogs and influencers were sharing the story of the mechanic who rebuilt. Hope and Daniel, though uncomfortable with the spotlight, allowed a few interviews to explain his mission to give children and teens with disabilities the chance to experience the freedom of driving through custom-modified vehicles built with both function and soul. And slowly, the garage renamed Lily's Garage as a tribute to the girl who started it. Al became a beacon of inspiration, flooded with letters from families across the country. Some sending pictures of their children who dreamed of having a car they could drive. Others simply offering support, donations, and stories of their own struggles. And Daniel took none of it for granted. Instead, pouring every ounce of his energy into each vehicle that came through his doors, often working side by side with kids to help them understand their cars, empowering them to feel ownership and confidence. And it wasn't long before the first project under the new model was completed. A sleek, jet black Jeep, modified with hand controls and widened foot access for a teenage boy named Marcus, who had lost both legs in a bus accident. And when Marcus drove it for the first time, his mother crying, his friends cheering, Daniel stood silently off to the side, a tear sliding down his cheek, not because he was proud, though he was, but because in that moment he felt connected to something bigger than just metal and engines. He felt like he had helped restore someone's soul, and this became the standard. At Lily's Garage, each car became a story, and each story a ripple of change, with local high schoolers volunteering to help with design, corporate sponsors reaching out to donate equipment, and mechanics from all around the state applying to intern under Daniel, hoping to learn not just the craft, but the compassion behind it. And throughout it all, Daniel stayed the same humble man he had always been, still drinking black coffee out of an old thermos, still refusing to wear anything fancier than his patched-up coveralls, still making time to talk to each kid who walked into the shop as if they were his only client. And as the months passed, Daniel's connection with Lily and Evelyn deepened, not in a fairy tale romance kind of way, but in something stronger, something built on mutual respect, shared purpose, and unshakable gratitude. With Evelyn occasionally stopping by the shop with updates from the foundation, and Lily, now more confident than ever, volunteering at the garage on weekends, helping other teens like herself believe in the power of dreams. And it wasn't long before Lily got her driver's license, not just passing the test, but acing it. And driving herself to school became her favorite moment of the day. Not just for the freedom it gave her, but because she could feel her father's memory in every hum of the Mustang engine. And one day, after a particularly long week filled with customizations and late-night problem-solving, Daniel received an unexpected envelope delivered by courier, and inside was an invitation to a National Innovation Summit in Washington. And while he initially hesitated, Evelyn encouraged him to go, reminding him that what he had started was more than just a shop pit, was a movement. And at the summit, standing among CEOs, inventors, and tech moguls, Daniel shared his story, not with flashy slides or business jargon, but with the quiet sincerity that had always defined him. And when he finished speaking, the standing ovation was thunderous, the applause echoing like the roar of 100 restored engines, and Daniel, for the first time, felt like the world saw him not as the poor mechanic from a forgotten garage, but as a man who had turned rust into gold, who had taken pain and turned it into purpose. And after the award ceremony, a young girl in a wheelchair approached him, with wide eyes, and asked if he could help her fix her dad's old truck, so she could one day take it to college. And Daniel knelt beside her and smiled, already thinking about the custom setup he'd build for her. And that's how life continued at Lily's Garage, one story, one car, one miracle at a time, until years had passed and the project had grown into a nationwide initiative, with Daniel training hundreds of young mechanics across the country, teaching them not just how to fix what's broken, but how to believe in what can be rebuilt. And through it all, he remained close with Lily, who eventually became a motivational speaker and advocate for youth empowerment, often telling her story at conferences and schools, always ending with the words, "One man gave me my freedom, one engine, one act of kindness. That's all it takes." And Daniel would often watch those clips online, quietly smiling to himself, sometimes in his office, sometimes in the workshop, always proud. And though he now had offers from magazines, books, and even movie studios, wanting to adapt his story, he never let the attention change him, because deep down, he was still that same boy who learned to turn a wrench with calloused hands and a stubborn heart. Still the man who believed that no dream was too broken to fix. And every now and then, when the garage was quiet, he'd sit on the old Mustang's hood, now fully restored and retired in a corner of the shop, look out at the rows of cars being built for people who had almost given up, and whisper a quiet thank you to the girl who showed up on crutches with hope in her voice, and to the billionaire mother who saw the magic behind the grease, because in the end, all Daniel Carter ever wanted was to be useful, to make something better than he found it, and now because of love, loss, and the incredible power of one selfless act, he had changed the world, one dream at a time.